Hi everybody, I hope you're all doing well. And today we're going to be talking about the one and only Ronnie Coleman. When it comes to sheer mass, power and incredible competitive performance, then no one comes close to the level of Ronnie Coleman. He's by far the freakiest of the freaks to ever win the Olympia in my opinion. Pushing 300 pounds at 3% body fat on stage, Ronnie truly pushed beyond what was thought to be physically possible. A true mass monster, he did what he had to do to push the limits in strength, size and conditioning. Ronnie is probably one of the few athletes in history that maximize his potential by combining his incredible genetic gift with that insane work ethic. The man was squatting and deadlifting 800 pounds at 5 weeks out from the Mr. Olympia while starving and being exhausted. And that takes a whole different level of dedication. That's why he kept winning and had almost 30 professional wins under his belt, including 8 Mr. Olympias. Most athletes fall into two categories. They are either incredibly gifted and their work ethic falls, or they do not have the best genetic potential and make up for it with incredible hard work. However, Ronnie had the best of both worlds, and that's what really set him apart from everyone else. His approach to training and nutrition was machine-like. While working as a cop, he would have his containers of chicken and vegetables in his police cruiser, or having his last meal at 3 o'clock in the morning because he simply had to. That's on top of a full day's work and hours of training and cardio during his reign. That's something very special. Ronnie had always been a man of willpower and determination, and not a lot of people actually know, but he successfully got into a tertiary program and studied accounting in college, or university, wherever you're from. Originally, Coleman was on his way to becoming a professional football NFL player, but a few injuries forced him out. He failed to find much work in accounting and so began working at Domino's Pizza, and there he was able to supplement his training by eating a lot of pizza. He laughs about it later because he said that there wasn't a lot of protein in it, but it was enough to help him recover. While being completely natural, he went on to win his pro status in the IFBB in 1991 at the World Amateur Championships, where he simply blew everyone away. And that's competing against guys who were heavily enhanced. He still destroyed them. That's, well, completely natural. If that's not genetics, then I don't know what is. He was just a freak. Up until 1998, Ronnie was barely making the top 10 at the Mr. Olympia. But that didn't deter him from training hard. He was one of the most disciplined bodybuilders of all time. Even when competing overseas with the likes of Lee Priest, he would be eating his chicken and vegetables while other competitors were already relaxing and enjoying themselves. He couldn't win and was getting upset. And one night before a contest, Kevin Levrone tells of a story how I went to visit Ronnie. And Ronnie kept asking Kevin, how did he get so lean and dry on the day of the show? So Kevin simply kept pouring Ronnie lots of black coffees that night and getting him to drink a lot of vodka. And at first, Ronnie thought that Levrone was just messing with him and being crazy. I mean, who in their rightful mind would drink alcohol on the night before on the day of the competition? But he agreed to try as he was ready to try anything. The next day, Coleman easily beat everyone to win the show and take it from Kevin's grasp. And, Kevin Levrone was in complete disbelief and dismay. And Ronnie, he kept going and winning. He developed a lot of confidence. At the 1998 Mr. Olympia, he actually beat Kenneth Flex Wheeler, who was the favorite to win and to take the Mr. Olympia. And in doing so, he literally jumped something like 8 places to take the title, which was unheard of. I mean, it's normal for bodybuilders to move 1 to sometimes 3 places in an Olympia, but 8 and take the Olympia, that was just unheard of. And that's going back to the time when he was competing against people like Nasser El-Sambadi, Kevin Levrone, Sean Ray, Gunther Schlierkampf, Marcus Ruhl, the freakiest of the freaks in a very competitive era. But Coleman, who had won the Night of Champions earlier that year and was starting to be recognized as one of the best in his discipline, appeared greatly improved. And that shows that he just kept going, and no matter what, he kept pushing and getting better and better. And the funny thing is, he actually beat Flex Wheeler by just a few points, and thus beginning one of the longest streaks of Olympia wins ever, apart from Lee Haney. 8 Olympias in a row. In fact, the man got so large and so massive that even when he was completely shredded and was walking around, it looked like he had fat rolls. They weren't fat rolls. They were simply bellies of muscle hanging and giving off the appearance of fat because they were so massive. Eventually, he grew all the way up to 300 pounds at very low body fat, which in my opinion He's way too big for his height, and that's why, his aesthetics began to suffer a little bit. He's only 5'11", and so he was ridiculously big. And naturally, his midsection began to grow, and we never really saw him as conditioned as before. So he kept winning by sheer size and separation until he was finally beat by his longtime rival, Jay Cutler. And that says something about the rivalry and Jay's own determination. Being runner-up 6 years in a row must have been incredibly hard mentally. Nonetheless, Ronnie became one of the best in history with 8 Olympia wins. And if he wasn't injured, he probably would have kept on going and probably would have won 9 or even 10 Mr. Olympias. Interesting enough, together with the Arnold Classic win, he was one of the only 2 people in professional bodybuilding history to ever win the Olympia and the Arnold Classic in the same year, apart from Dexter Jackson. On top of this, he's by far one of the strongest Mr. Olympia competitors in bodybuilding history. I mean, the man was able to bench press 500 pounds for multiple reps. He was squatting and deadlifting about 800 pounds, pressing 200-pound dumbbells, and of course, the legendary 2,300-pound leg press for multiple reps. And this was all done at just 5 weeks from the Mr. Olympia, when other competitors would be easing back to try to avoid injuries. But he didn't care, he just kept pushing and going. So one could argue that Ronnie's approach to bodybuilding was unique, as he was more of a power builder. He didn't shy away from very heavy weights and high volume. And that's what really helped him build that enormous mass and muscle density and really set him apart from everyone else, because he was able to push himself beyond what most people could. He pushed his body to the absolute limit, giving his body to bodybuilding entirely and getting badly injured over time. The man gave everything that he could and did whatever he had to do. So that is an enormous commandment to his determination and belief in himself. That's a lot of power. Coleman competed in some of the most competitive times in bodybuilding, as the 1990s and the early 2000s had some of the best lineups in history in terms of size, conditioning, separation. It was crazy. You had his rival Jay Cutler, and you had Dexter Jackson, Cameron Levroni, Chris Cormier, Marcus Rule, and as we mentioned before, Gunther Schlickam, Branch Warren, Sean Ray, Victor Martinez, and the list goes on. They were some of the freakiest of the freaks. And even though they were that good, he would still smoke them in a lot of the competitions. And that says a lot about the quality and conditioning of the athletes during that era. A lot of people who argue about Ronnie not being the best ever don't really know what they're talking about. The videos and photos never did him justice, as you had to see him in person to get an appreciation. The man was the size of an elephant. It was just ridiculous. He was enormous in, every possible way, while also retaining some level of aesthetics and insane, and I mean totally insane level of conditioning. I met him a few times, and let me tell you, I was flabbergasted. His hands alone were huge and made mine disappear. I mean, I am 6'2", and I'm not a small guy, but he made me look like a tiny child. It was just ridiculous. Even while in tremendous hip and back pain, he still kept traveling to expos, smiling and making jokes. And to me, that makes him the people's champion, to be able to persevere and to push yourself through no matter what. And to me, that makes him the greatest bodybuilder of all time.